moments when you're reviewing your travel photos back at your Airbnb and realize your once-in-a-lifetime Northern Light shots at Lofoten Islands, Norway is blurry. We've all been there. You spend thousands on premium mirrorless gear, yet sometimes your photos still don't have that tack, sharp quality you see from professionals. Here's the truth most camera companies won't tell you. Even the best mirrorless cameras with top-tier stabilization can't compensate for all the subtle technical mistakes we make. As someone with well over 1 million shutter clicks with multiple DSLR and mirrorless cameras over the past 2 decades, photographing my travel across 6 continents, I've learned these blurry photo fixes the hard way, so you don't have to. In this video, I'll break down the 5 most common reasons why your travel photos end up blurry, and give you the exact settings and techniques I use to consistently create professional quality images, no matter shooting handheld, with moving subjects, or even in challenging light. So let's get started. Let's start with the number 1 reason why you miss the sharp photos in handheld positions, using shutter speed too slow for your gear. Even with the impressive IBIS, which means in-body image stabilization features in mirrorless cameras these days, physics still wins. So here's what you need to know. The heavier your gear, the faster your shutter speed needs to be. You may have heard the reciprocal rule as mentioned by some other photographers who advise that your minimum shutter speed should be 1 over your focal length. But that's a flawed assumption. Your blurry photos caused by camera shake has less to do with your focal length, but more to do with the total weight of your camera gear. Let's say you use a wide-angle zoom lens, such as this Canon RF 15 to 35 mm f2.8. No matter if you use the 15 mm or 35 mm focal length, your lens weight is the same. And in fact, no matter if you use 1/15th a second or 1/35th a second, when you dial to the 15 mm focal length, you are almost guaranteed to get a blurry photo. So use that reciprocal rule with precaution. It's the total weight of your camera and lens, not your focal length, that causes your camera shake, which causes your blurry photos. If you're someone like me using a full-frame mirrorless camera paired with a zoom lens, I highly advise you to use 1/80th a second for still subject or 1/250th second for people subject for consistent results. And with a telephoto lens of a 70 to 200 mm f2.8, for example, I suggest 1/200th of a second for still subject or 1/400th a second for people subjects, regardless what focal length you use. You might get away with slower shutter speed when using a smaller crop sensor camera body and a compact prime lens. And again, it's not the focal length, but the weight of your camera gear that causes camera shake in handheld position, which eventually causes blurry photos. Now, some of you would say that your mirrorless camera claims 5 to 7 stops of IBIS, or your lens might be equipped with image stabilization feature as well. Well, mine too. But let me tell you, in real-world scenarios, in handheld positions, your IBIS feature won't guarantee sharp photos when your shutter speed is too slow. So this knowledge is the difference between frame-worthy sharpness and disappointment. The second sharpness killer affects travel photographers specifically, capturing moving subjects with inappropriate shutter speeds. Those vibrant market scenes, locals going about their way, or wildlife moments require entirely different settings. Here's your travel photography cheat sheet. For walking subjects or kids playing, use at least 1/250th a second. For faster movement, like team sports or beach volleyball, aim for 1/500th of a second or faster. And for those fleeting wildlife moments on safari, you need 1/1000th of a second or faster to freeze the action. Combine these shutter speed with the eye autofocus feature that's available in most mirrorless cameras these days, you'll more likely get sharp images. And remember, when traveling, you rarely get second chances at these authentic moments. Getting your shutter speed right the first time means bringing home memories, not disappointment. Now, if you love photographing people, whether it's capturing your loved ones during travel or documenting everyday moments, or even do street photography, you've probably wondered if your current camera gear is truly meeting your needs. Make sure to check out my free 1-hour video guide, the Mirrorless Camera Ultimate Buying Guide, that will make your decision process way easier. I've not only talked about how to choose cameras, but also lenses. I'll leave you the link in the description below. The third reason affects those of you who invested in premium fast glass for your mirrorless system. We love those f1.4 or even f1.2 primes for their beautiful bokeh, but they're often the culprit behind technically soft travel portraits. When you are capturing close-up portraits at close distance using wide apertures such as f1.4, your depth of field becomes razor thin, often less than 1 inch. You try to focus on the eyes, but your subject moves slightly or your focus point shifts slightly. You miss the critical sharpness. The solution isn't complicated. Just stop down to something like f1.8, f2.0, or f2.8. You will still achieve that beautiful subject background separation that screams professional quality while ensuring your subject's entire face stays crisp and detailed. When I photograph my family in documentary style during travel or do street photography, I typically won't use an aperture larger than f2.8, where constant movement of your subject is inevitable. This will help you nail your focus and sharpness. The fourth reason impacts your epic landscape shots. When you have compelling foreground elements just a few feet away and breathtaking mountains in the distance, even f11 or f13 might not deliver front-to-back sharpness. Check out this photo I took in Hawaii recently, where composition includes foreground succulent plants and faraway scenes. Even using f13, I still wouldn't be able to get everything in the frame tack sharp. Here's the pro workflow. You can dial down to a narrower aperture like f16, f18 when using a wide angle or mid zoom lens. Focus somewhere 1/3 into the scene. Adjust your composition so your closest elements are not too close. This combination maximizes your hyperfocal distance and achieves your goal for everything to look sharp. In fact, for those portfolio-worthy wide vistas, consider focus stacking. Take 3 to 5 identical shots focused at different distances and blend them in post. This technique is how pros achieve impossible sharpness in those magazine-worthy travel images. You need a tripod for these type of photos. For landscape photos with a telephoto lens or in-camera focus stacking features, it might be a different topic. One day I'll share. The fifth sharpness destroyer happens in the magical low-light situations travelers often encounter. Ancient temples, evening street markets, or candlelit dining experiences. These environments tempt you to crank up your ISO, which degrades image quality. Even on the latest mirrorless bodies, there's a noticeable sharpness difference between ISO 800 and 6400. Typically above ISO 3200, fine details start disappearing, making your photos look soft regardless of perfect focus. In my experience photographing people in low light, I suggest using a prime lens, keeping ISO under 5 digits, even using a full-frame mirrorless camera, and cut that down even further if you use full-frame DSLR or crop sensor mirrorless cameras. This is when camera equipment does matter. Of course, there are many other reasons why your photos are not sharp, depending on what you photograph, depending on whether you use handheld positions versus tripod, depending on what kind of gear you use, depending on whether you have human errors versus gear quality issues. Of course, I'll be happy to share more tips in the future videos. So in summary, these 5 lessons have transformed my travel photography from amateur snapshots to images worthy of print. And remember, motion problems require shutter speed solutions, distance issues needs aperture adjustments, low light challenges demand ISO strategy. Your mirrorless camera is capable of incredible images. You just need to know how to unlock the potential. Don't spend all the time researching on gear, thinking only your next gear will solve the problem. It's you, the photographer, and your skills that determine the quality of your photos. You upgrade your skills before upgrading your gear, not the other way around. Which of these techniques will you apply on your next trip? Comment below and let me know. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more tips in the future.